Okay, everybody. So I recently went to my local Goodwill store, if you want to call it that, and I go there maybe like roughly, oh, I don't know, once a month, once every month and a half, just to see what kind of stuff they have on the shelves and this and that. Usually around the, appliances, electronics, and things like that. And one thing I came across here was this Intermatic timer. Now, these timers are pretty common. Basically, they're ones that you plug into the wall, and they're usually for light fixtures like lamps and things like that, and that you put on for nighttime and such. But what's really cool about this one is, just look at it. This is a very vintage timer. Just to show you what it looks like, here's the dial itself. There's your on-off tripper. The way you adjust these trippers is you push down and then turn them clockwise or counterclockwise to the time that you want, then let go. Here is your off-on switch that'll get tripped when the timer reaches its proper point, I guess, like that. And not only it's not just the fact that this timer is so vintage, is that it's cool, that's what's cool about it, as I'm trying to say. But check this out right here. You can see you actually do plug the timer into the wall, but the timer itself doesn't have to be at the wall, which is really awesome. So you can put it on a table, on a shelf, something like that, and that's really cool. One of the reasons why I was so excited to find a timer like this again was because we actually used to have a timer like this, the modern version, like a modernized version, like how the Intermatic timers look nowadays, and I'll get to that more in a second. We got that timer in, I'm going to say, 2007 or 2008. And it was so great in the sense of, like how you have to, at least in our case, we don't have to change the off time because it's always around midnight, but we would always have to change the on time, for the seasons, like longer daylight and things like that. But instead of having to go at the wall and take the timer from there, you could actually do it right here on a table or something. And that was just awesome. And then sometime in 2012, the timer had failed, unfortunately. It did still provide power, but it basically wouldn't advance anymore. And I guess basically the motor inside had maybe failed or something. That's my guess. And I tried so hard to find a timer like that again. And I guess for some reason they just stopped making them that way, because I looked at Home Depot, Ace Hardware, Lowe's, and no such thing. So I was really bummed about that. So, since then we just went back to a timer at the wall and just go below the table, this and that. Not the biggest of deals. But, man, let me tell you, when I found this timer, I was just so happy about that. And it does work. When I brought it home, I plugged it in, let it run for a couple of hours, and it did keep time perfectly. So I was happy about that. And just to show you some other parts of it here, so here's the front of it. If you want, what I'll do is I'll turn the dial, and you should be able to see the dial here go accordingly. You see that? And go to the off tripper. Kind of cool, huh? And basically, let's go on the bottom here. If you want to check out the backside here, tell you some of the stuff on it. I'm not going to stay here for too long, so you can just pause the video on this if you like. And yeah, so basically, just like this black on. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Like this black on top here, the beige all along. Oh, and there's where your thing that you want to plug in goes into. And just the fact that outlet is black like that, like you don't see that nowadays, which is just really cool to see all this different coloring. And so basically, just for comparison purposes, here's what the more modern Intermatic timer looks like. And just for the record, Intermatic we've had very good luck with. Just that one timer didn't last long for whatever reason, so we kind of bummed on that. But we've had timers like these now for quite a number of years. Like some are going, I'm going to say at least 10, 15 years old, and they're still working perfectly. So just a little bit of comparison here. So the only downside, of course, is you have to plug this directly into the wall and adjust it there. And basically what I was saying about before is the modernized version of this table timer, if you want to call it that, it looked more like this than like that. That's the part I was getting at. And I guess one advantage you have of the newer one is that these trippers are removable, so you can put in as many as you want. Like if you want the light to go on and off 2 times in one day, you can just put a different extra number of trippers in here, and then that'll do it accordingly. And I actually did find a slightly older version of, I don't have it with, I never took it unfortunately, but I did find an older version of this timer where the dial kind of looked like this. But let me see if you guys remember this timer design, okay? So you had the trippers and this and that, but they were more like the colors of like the coffee pots you see in restaurants, like you have brown for regular, orange for decaf. You kind of had the trippers follow that color here, and I don't remember which one was on and off, but you get the idea. And the timer itself, it didn't have a time of day thing on the front here. What it actually had was it would say time along here. Then it would have some kind of like arrow. I think it maybe looked like a leaf. I can't remember. It would point in the direction of where the tripper was, or rather where the dial was. And the difference was the dial wasn't on top like it is like here. It was kind of like a keyed switch. Let's just go with that. That it would be up here, and you would turn this way to turn it on or off. Like it used to be here instead of over here. Does anyone remember that? I definitely do, and it's just kind of cool that I remember a timer like that. We did, I already forgot what I said earlier, but back in 2018, I went to an estate sale with my brother, and they actually had the older version of this timer there, but I never really thought of taking it because, I just didn't really think of it, and, it's not a big deal, but what's kind of cool is just how I just saw that, and I'm sure it still worked great, which was awesome. But so just having this timer like this on the table now instead of at the wall is great. And one thing you could do too, actually, before I get to this, let me show you something here. Here's what we're currently using on the lamp right now. Now tell me, is this an older style Intermatic wall timer or what? Here's some of the stuff on here. I'll let you read that again if you'd like. Now we've had this timer too for a very long time as well. This timer was, of course, originally at the Long Island house, and I remember specifically when I was a kid, the only times we used this timer was for the Christmas season, and what we did was, in the garage, we had one of the wall outlets, basically across the way from where the garage doors are. We would put this timer on there, and then plug in an extension cord, run it outside through one of the garage door openings, and then it would connect to a small wreath that we used to put on a plant pot hook that was between the garage doors outside, and we would just run the wire at the end of the garage door, and the door would go up and down just fine. And that's basically how long we've had this timer for. We've probably had this timer for, I'm going to say, the 1980s. I don't see any information on here as to when the timer was made, but maybe you guys can get some information from it. But I mean, just check that out. And so we've had this timer now for maybe almost 40 years by this point, and it still works perfectly. The only downside about this timer is the way the prongs are, it's polarized, and you can see where the larger one is. So we have to kind of put the timer upside down like this to get it on the wall. See how the name is upside down? So that's the only downside. Not the end of the world, but it still works perfectly. And the trippers themselves are kind of like a little difficult to adjust. Basically, it's kind of like this timer here where you push them down and move them. The only problem is if I push down this on tripper and move it towards the off one, they kind of turn with each other sometimes. So you kind of have to hold this one in place while you change that. So it's kind of like a little bit of a more difficult design aside from this and the more modern timer. But basically, it still works perfectly. So I mean, I can't say it doesn't do the job. So pretty cool. I'm sure some of you out there may have seen a timer like this back when, right? Very cool to see. One more feature I'd like to show you about this timer too is that, actually this older one here as well, I'll move the modern one over here for a moment. Basically, it has an override in such a way where it won't trip the switch, but it will basically still keep time. On this timer here, what you can do is, maybe you read it before on the back, if I pull this may be a little bit difficult to do one-handed, but I'll try. If I pull this dial out, I may have to do it this way, let's see. Yep, there we go. Okay. Basically, now with the dial pulled out, it won't trip the switch, but it will still advance and keep time, which is really nice. In fact, I'll just show it here to you. Let me switch hands here. I'll show it to you here if you can see the. I don't have a very good screen view right there. We go. Oh, I just pushed it back down. There we go. Okay. Now, if I with the dial pulled out, when I move the on tripper towards the switch here, see, nothing happened. So with the dial pulled out, it will still turn and just keep time, which is nice, but it just won't trip the switch. So that's definitely a cool thing. This older timer here actually has the same feature. What you do is on the turn switch here, you just pull it out like that, and now when I turn the dial here, see it says off. It just bypasses it completely. You see that? So that is kind of cool how both these timers have that function. That's one. What I guess that's one downside about the modern timers is that you don't really have that option. All you can really do is just turn the switch here and just do that. Which again is not the end of the world. I guess it's just kind of a cool thing, a little cool feature to have though if you had like the override like that if you want. I guess anyway. And there you guys go. There's the video on this really cool vintage timer that I found. Not only is it vintage, but it's on the table, which I'm just so happy to find like that. So nice and convenient. And just quickly, one other thing I got from Goodwill here was I found this nice analog wall clock on there. Let me not have the lights go on it. There you go. That was on the shelf there, and I was like, it's a nice clock. You know, it's nice and basic. Why not get it? One of the reasons why I like it too is because not only does it have a second hand, but the second hand is also red instead of black with the other hand. So I always like how they have it have a different color like that to make it stand out a little bit more. Really cool. And when you have an analog wall clock, I prefer ones that have second hands too. Just kind of nice to have, I guess. Anyway, so there you guys go. Really nice vintage. Over 11 minutes. Sorry guys if the video is a little long for you, but just pretty happy about getting this vintage timer here, and just thought I'd show you some things on it. So those of you who like timers like this. And just a little history on this older timer we have and this modern one, I guess, for comparisons, all right? But there you go. Just happened to stop by Goodwill, found a great find, and hopefully this timer will keep going for a nice long time. Really glad to have it. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.